Hello. This video is my answer to Peter Joseph's call. 3 questions, what do you propose? My name is Jeroen van Belen and you can find more information on my website gutsforroses.org. So, hi Peter. In my perception, your argument rests upon the assumption that today's crises are the result of our current economic system. And I'd like to challenge that assumption by providing an alternative assumption, namely, both today's crisis and our current economic system are the result of our behavior. I will explain what I mean by that. Due to our increased technological capabilities, you noted that our impact on each other, our planet, and the future has become larger over the past century. But the corresponding responsibility is still lagging behind. So if I talk about that our behavior causes today's crisis, what I mean is today's crises are the results of this mismatch. And the happy thing is that these crises are making us aware of our responsibility. So once we are aware, we can change our behavior, and then we will create a new economic system that fits this awareness. So I would like to answer your 3 questions by posing 3 counter-questions. Here's my first question. Is it true that all crises would resolve if everybody would take all relevant concerns into account with everything they do? Most people will react, but that's impossible. But that is not my question. My question is, if it would be possible, would it then indeed be true that all crises would resolve if everybody would take all relevant concerns into account with everything they do? And I think it's not very hard to see that in fact that is true. So the real problem is this at all possible? And before I dive into that, let me first remind you of the fact that when you claim a concern, that obviously is also a deed. And that falls obviously under the regime of taking all relevant concerns into account. Which implies that having for concern to be the owner of all of the world, for example, is not a concern that is taking all other relevant concerns into account, so it's not a claim you can make. So then, the real question becomes, are all necessary concerns consistent? Where by consistent I mean that they are simultaneously attainable. And this question has already been answered by Gandhi. He said this world has enough for everybody's needs, but not for everybody's greeds. And there is scientific support for that. For example, the University of Wageningen has calculated that this Earth is able to feed 67 billion people, sustainably and organic. So yes, I believe that if every one of us takes all of the concerns into account, with everything he does, all of today's crisis will be resolved. So on to the next question. Is it possible to make people take all relevant concerns into account even if they don't want to? This is like a paraphrase of your questions, because you are looking for incentives, whether within or outside the current economic system, but you're looking for incentives. And this is my question over here. Are there incentives conceivable that will make people take each other's concerns into account even if they don't want to? My answer to this question is a blunt no. I don't believe that. But the good news is that Jesus said there is more happiness in giving than in receiving, and that means that it's quite natural to us to do take care of each other. And so where there might be a few people that don't want to do this, the vast majority of people will want to do this. So that brings us to the 3rd and last question. If not, what are our options? Because I just argued that indeed it's not the case that everybody will do that. So what are our options? And my belief is that our current and the new economic system will coexist. So let me go back to our assumptions. Your assumption was that the system causes our behavior, and my assumption is that our behavior causes the system. We can see that at this level as well, because the system is running on currency, right? That's our means of exchange. And our behavior is that we swap. Now the main paradigm shift as I see it, when we move from our current economic system to the new one, is that we move from swap to share. So I believe that the share economy is the new economy to arrive, is being born as we speak. And I believe that the share economy is the same thing as your natural resource-based economy. I added to this YouTube movie a little article that you can also find on my website. It's called Don't Swap, Just Share. It explains this paradigm shift. So, just to be complete, let me give a little overview of the differences between the swap, and the share. Now our current economic system is based on swaps. And it works as follows. It uses the market principle. That's the thing that we do when we negotiate. I do the least and I take the most. That's what I want to do in a negotiation. The problem is that this organizes a disbalance, and we like to repair this disbalance using the quid pro quo principle. And that in fact is the reason for swapping. Also note that people that want to take as much as possible together in fact create scarcity. And when there is scarcity, there's the need for the notion of ownership, and people start to compete, and they do that using the notion of value. Whereas people that take the responsibility to take each other's concerns into account, they will use the care principle. I do what I can and I take what I need. But if you take what you need, then Gandhi promised us that we will live in abundance. There will be no need for a notion of ownership. We can replace that with the notion of stewardship. We don't need to compete, we can cooperate. And we don't need the notion of value. Let me go into that for a little moment. Currency, in my opinion, has two aspects. It has an information aspect and it has a value aspect. The value aspect is what we use when we swap. Namely, we swap value. And why do we swap value? We swap value because we don't trust each other. Now, the share economy is based upon trust. And if we do trust each other, we don't need this value anymore. We do need the trust though. So let me conclude with a remark that the competitive advantage of the share economy is that it lowers transaction costs. Finally, I made a simulation of this share economy. You can find it on my website. I've played it on the Z-Day 2014 in Rotterdam, and I'd like to play it in Berlin this year, but you'll have to contact me for that because otherwise I'll be busy with my kids. And this natural law resource-based economy, or share economy, I want to base it on demo, which you can find at ee-institute.org, where EE stands for Enterprise Engineering, and demo stands for Design and Engineering Methodology of Organization. It gives a very concise way of looking at how to coordinate actions among people. And the Dutch chapter of the Zeitgeist movement is currently implementing demo in a new kind of Google. The old Google, you enter a search term and you get some hits. In this new Google, you enter a new goal. And the output of new Google is a planning how you can achieve your goal in cooperation with others in the share economy. Thank you very much.